Hello, all you Maquis and Maquis sympathizers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
What up?
Today we're going to discuss and review Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 22, For the Cause. Alternate title, Enemy at the Yates.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. As always, you can expect full spoilers up through the episode being discussed and a possible small number of spoilers for later in the series, but we'll keep those to an appropriate minimum. For the Cause originally aired May 6, 1996. It was written by Ronald D. Moore. Story by the guy whose name I can't pronounce, Mark Garrett O'Connell. Writer, let's see, he did Meridian and Second Sight or something like that.
He did Meridian and Second Sight. And
two of our favorite episodes.
Yep. And later, he will do one more episode of the series called Who Mourns for Morn.
Oh my gosh, what a spoiler. By the way, where's Morn been? Maybe
I don't know, you're the one in charge of tracking Morn.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just because I've been on vacation, haven't been watching Deep Space Nine in a while. I was kind of missing Morn. Anyway, Ronald D. Moore and or Mark Garrett O'Connell possibly working through some trust issues with women. And the episode was directed by James L. Conway, who seems to be trying some new tricks in this episode.
I'm looking at the list of Morn appearances.
When was the last time we saw him?
It looks like the most recent time he appeared was in 418, Rules of Engagement.
Okay.
And he will not appear again for some episodes.
All right, he was in that story where he almost talked.
That one time, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So anyway, it's another morning of romantic bliss for Ben Sisko and Cassidy Yates. But sadly, Cassidy has to get up and get to work. But Ben tries to entice her back to bed, leading to a sick burn where he says he's a paragon of Starfleet whatever. Parody of virtue, he's a paragon of virtue, and then Cassidy says he's a parody of virtue.
Yeah, it's it's very, very cute. Apparently,
she got him.
Apparently, the line about being a paragon of a Starfleet captain being a paragon of virtue is used to describe a Starfleet captain in the original series episode "Mud's Women."
Ooh,
so intentional throwback or complete coincidence, because it's a normal phrase that can be used. Probably the second one.
I mean, I could believe it's kind of like a saying that a Starfleet officer must be a paragon of virtue or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Cassidy leaves, and then Ben steals her pillow and lays on it awkwardly, possibly so his face will stay pointed towards the camera. I was like, is his head really on that pillow? I'm not 100% sure. But he likes sniffing that pillow.
Yeah, no.
Meanwhile, Michael Eddington is back. I mean, he's been here the whole time.
Yeah, he never went anywhere. What are you talking about?
Even those times that he should have logically been there, but it was mysteriously absent. He was there. Don't think about it.
Nope.
And he's got important news. Level 7 security news. That's pretty high level, I think.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Might be really low level. I'm not clear on if we've ever heard of a certain security level in that numerical fashion before.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine what these 6 security levels could be below it, because it's like, I mean, how many security levels do you need? But anyway, the Federation is going to give the Cardassians 12 industrial replicators, which they also call CFI replicators. So I don't know what that stands for, but...
Class 4 industrial, CFI.
Ah, okay. Mystery solved. Which will be shipped by way of Deep Space Nine. But there's concern that the Maquis may try to steal them. The Maquis seem poised to make a final push to get the Cardassians out of the DMZ, and these replicators could be just what they need or something. So Sisko's like, okay, let's keep an eye out for the Maquis.
Yep.
Then Odo and Eddington break shocking news. Starfleet intelligence suspect there's a Maquis smuggler aboard the station. And the person they suspect of being the suspected smuggler? Cassidy Yates.
What?
Oh my gosh. Sisko's like, This is outrageous. But Odo and Eddington lay out their case. Cassidy always takes a little too long to make deliveries when flying near the Badlands. Also, they got their hands on a list of code names of Maquis contacts, and one of them supposedly has been living on Deep Space Nine for 6 months. And how long has Cassidy been living on Deep Space Nine? 6 months. So, you see, all the pieces are falling together.
But it's not evidence. He's like, this isn't evidence to make an accusation. And they're like, we didn't say we had an accusation. We said we have suspicions.
But anyway, Odo wants to put Cassidy under surveillance. But Sisko objects that she's a Federation citizen and he won't allow it. Then Eddington makes the claim that if Cassidy is a member of the Maquis, she's no longer a Federation citizen.
Which is obviously just like some ridiculous rationalization to try to like spy on people. But I think it's more interesting that it's like, this is the first time we've ever heard that you're not allowed to like watch someone more closely if they're a Federation citizen if you don't have certain evidence.
Right. I think Sisko is just kind of making some stuff up here. I'm just confused about this point. It's like, do all former colonists living in the DMZ no longer have citizenship?
Well, I mean, they had to give up their citizenship to stay on the planets in the DMZ. That was the whole point of that episode of Next Generation. It was okay, you're not going to be citizens anymore.
I mean, was it they wouldn't be citizens anymore, or they just couldn't rely on protection from the Federation anymore?
Well, I think it's both.
Oh. But so does just being in contact with the Maquis or working for them automatically also make you renounce your citizenship?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, if you're not one of the people living on these planets, then you don't fall under that. So maybe that's a separate, it's like the Federation has put down a rule. It's like, if you're a terrorist, you're no longer a citizen, or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I assume not all people living on these planets are Maquis. And conversely, not all Maquis live on these planets, as we've seen many times.
Yeah, and honestly, it would be pretty messed up if they were like, well, if you're a Maquis, you're no longer a citizen, because that just means it's like, we have decided that crime means no due process is necessary.
Yeah, that's a little bit shady. A little bit shady.
So yeah, I don't think that his argument holds water.
Yeah.
But we find out it's not really a good faith argument in the long run anyway.
Yeah, he has an agenda here, and he needs to stick to it. But anyway, Sisko's like, okay, maybe like drum up a pretense to search her ship. So it's like, bring in those drug dogs or whatever. So a huge crowd is gathered to watch Kira play what I assume is spring ball against a mystery opponent. Maybe that Vedic who's really good at spring ball. I don't know.
I really thought that it was going to be.
Yeah, I kept expecting, like, when is the guy going to take off his mask and we're going to reveal who it is? But
it's like, it's Shakar, or it's Bashir. Well, obviously not Bashir, because he's in the audience. But
that would be a
like
twist.
That, where it's like, that would be a big twist.
Who is this mystery man? And it takes off, it's Bashir, and Bashir's like, what? And then the episode goes in a whole different direction.
I mean, yeah, I'd watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? That's a good setup for an episode. But yeah, among the crowd is Bashir and Garak. But Garak seems a little distracted, staring at Zial, who is also in the crowd. And yes, she is definitely now being played by one of the Not Penny's boat ladies.
This is the only time. Cat. Sorry. This is the only time that this particular actress, Tracy Middendorf, is going to play Zial.
Okay. So, man, just the revolving door of Zials. Hmm. But yeah, so Garak's like, didn't she used to look different or something? And Bashir's like, no, stop staring at her. That's creepy. Which, actually, he doesn't object to it being creepy. Just that it's probably not smart, seeing as Garak and Dukat are sworn enemies.
Yep. It's not creepy at all. It's fine.
If Bashir called it creepy, he wouldn't be able to make his own move.
Well, yeah. I mean, Bashir creeps on so many women. There's no way he can, like, call this out without Garak being like, oh, really? You want to go there?
I think, Bashir has his whole game plan laid out for Zial, and then he's like, oh, I can't have Garak, like, messing this up.
Mm.
Then Sisko is trying a cooking experiment. And I think he's wearing his Bajoran Outback clothes.
Yep.
So I guess he's making good use of those clothes. When Cassidy walks in for a little smoochy time, followed closely by Jake, who has developed a suspicious knack for walking in on Ben and Cassidy when they're making out. Jake needs to know what Kavarian tiger bats smell like, for a story. And he thinks Cassidy might know since she's been to Kavaria. But then Cassidy corrects him that she's never been to Kavaria, which causes Sisko to get suspicious. He's like, don't you go to Dreon 7 all the time? That's right next to Kavaria. So it's like, don't you go to Colorado all the time? That's right next to Utah.
Yeah, she's just like, it depends on what you call right next to.
Yeah. So this sparks a tedious debate about how close Kavaria, Dreon 7, and the Badlands are all relative to each other. But one thing is made clear, Cassidy doesn't like going near the Badlands. She's dead set against it. Then Sisko asks what route she takes to Dreon 7, and she asks why doesn't he just look up her flight plan? Which I'd be like, well, because you're right here. And I'm curious, so why don't you just tell me?
I thought we were having a conversation. Sorry for asking a question. Jeez.
He was like, don't you go around the such and such nebula? She's like, just whatever. So, oh man, sorry for taking an interest.
Seriously.
Later, Garak and Ziyal find themselves awkwardly alone in a turbo lift. And Garak relieves the tension with some humor. This leads to what I suppose is some light flirting, where they assure each other that they have nothing to fear from each other. Also, I gotta say, Ziyal is just remarkably well adjusted after all the stuff she's been through.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah.
She's like, later she mentions being in a prisoner of war camp. Is that a reference to the Breen mining slave camp? Or
it must be.
Was that even before that she was in a prisoner of war camp with her mom?
No, I don't think so, because, Dukat, was taking care of them before that.
But they were on a prisoner transport, weren't they?
Yeah, but they weren't prisoners on the prisoner transport. It was like, they weren't on the list as prisoners, they were on the list as, passengers or whatever.
Okay. Anyway, she's been through some stuff. Later, Odo tries to conduct a search of Cassidy's ship on the pretense of a virus inspection, but she immediately plays the "my boyfriend is the captain" card.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard to dodge that one.
Well, if Sisko was willing to stand by it and be like, no, everyone has to go through this. I can't give you special dispensation because you're my girlfriend. But no, he's just like, all right.
Yeah, it's a little weird he didn't prepare for this, but he's like, oh, right.
And it's like her excuse is like, oh, I'll flood the cargo bay with this kind of radiation so that, if that virus is here, it'll die or whatever. And I'm like, well, then why would anyone need to scan for the virus? You would just flood every cargo bay with that, and then there wouldn't be any virus problem.
I don't know. This radiation might be like the ivermectin of this universe or something. But also note, the director seems obsessed with finding a way with integrating video call effects into more dynamic shots.
Sure.
So in this scene, we get this continuous tracking shot of Cassidy walking toward the TV, and then they try to lock down the camera right as the call starts, but it's a little off and a little wonky. But I think James L. Conway, or whatever his name is obsessed with getting this to work. And we will see it again later. But anyway, yeah, Cassidy's in a hurry to meet some Tholians, so that sounds fun. So Sisko's like, all right, go meet your Tholians. I guess the Tholians are having a virus problem also, or I'm not quite clear what this excuse is with the Tholians.
She's carrying something really perishable, I guess, that the Tholians need for. I honestly don't remember what it was.
I thought she said something about the Tholians have had an outbreak of this virus, so
yeah, maybe. Hold on, let me.
They need these medical supplies.
Let me see if it's mentioned in here. She's going to the Tholian. They'll miss their rendezvous with the Tholian freighter. They need to inspect because of the Temeclian virus outbreak on Bajor. Yeah, just as the summary just says they'll miss their rendezvous with the Tholian freighters. So,
I think later she says something about the Tholians are having plague or virus problems. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. She's making the whole thing up.
Well, presumably she is still going to deliver cargo somewhere. It's just that there's another thing in between.
Well, I'm not so sure, because anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sisko has the plan to have Worf do a sneaky cloaked tail job in the Defiant. Nobody brings up that this is a violation of the treaty with the Romulans. Possibly nobody cares, because what are the Romulans going to do at this point?
We stopped caring about that at some point,
Yeah.
and the Romulan observer was only here for one episode or whatever, so it's fine.
It's like, hey, if you should have had an observer making sure. I mean,
I just love how the Federation is such a stickler for these agreements until this one, where it's like, it's fine.
yeah, whatever. I mean, I need to use this technology to spy on my girlfriend. Like,
yeah. Sisko's just like, we just won't tell the admirals. It's okay.
Yeah. But also maybe they just figure that the Romulan attack on the Founder homeworld just kind of nullified the treaty. It's like, you were using that intelligence we were sharing to do sneaky stuff. Incredibly.
I don't think the deal said that they couldn't use the intelligence for sneaky purposes.
True. I mean, we haven't seen this treaty. We don't know what the language is. So, but yeah, as they follow Cassidy's ship, the crew on the bridge of the Defiant discuss their opinions of the Maquis. Worf has nothing but disdain for them as dishonorable criminals and terrorists, but just don't say that in front of Kira. O'Brien feels sympathy for the Maquis, and he's also remarkably well recovered from his hard time incident.
Yep.
So,
I don't think it's a surprise that O'Brien, guy who's been at war with the Cardassians, is like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be under the Cardassians if I were the Maquis either. So
those totally make sense. So they ask Eddington what he thinks, even though there's a bunch of other people on the bridge, but they just ask Eddington what he thinks, and he says he doesn't care. His only morality is what Starfleet tells him to do. Which, I think this might actually be my favorite little moment in the show, because it's like Eddington avoids suspicion by kind of portraying this twisted parody of how he sees Starfleet, and then it just flies over everybody's head and everybody accepts it without question.
Apparently they've been building in this whole like there's the previous conversation that they had about that he and Sisko have about like the command, like he's like, everybody wants to be a captain, but I'm never going to be that or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, there's a note in here about it. So it says the idea for Eddington to join the Maquis goes all the way back to the episode The Adversary. According to Ira Stephen Bear, the subtext of the scene where Eddington and Sisko discuss rank was that Eddington knew he would never get to wear that red command level uniform. And this episode explains why. The decision was also prompted by internet rumors that Eddington was a changeling infiltrator. When the writers heard this, they decided never to make Eddington a changeling, but instead to do something that no one would expect.
I mean, well, wasn't Eddington like the red herring in that episode?
Yeah.
Like the Adversary episode, so...
Yep.
I don't know how people think these like rumors are so clever or whatever. Unless, he's like a really deep cover changeling or something.
Yep, super, like so deep cover that he helps kill that other changeling.
Right. Although, didn't he do a blood test in that episode? But
yeah, I think we've established that blood tests are bull anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, then they see it. Cassidy's ship rendezvous with a Maquis ship and beams over her cargo. So just the fact that she gave her cargo to the Maquis kind of leads me to believe she's not really going to meet the Tholians, but...
Well, I thought that it was like... Okay, because if it was a cargo of this medicine or whatever, then there's no reason that they couldn't search her ship. I thought that she had like some secret cargo concealed that she was then sending to the Maquis, and that's what she transported over there. Because otherwise, why not let them search? And they would have no suspicions when they find exactly what you say you have.
Right. But then later they say that her cargo was food and medical supplies, so... It's, I guess it's unclear. It's unclear what exactly is going on here. Then Zial pays Garak a visit at his shop, and then invites him to join her in a Cardassian sauna holosuite program. Cardassian saunas, like the ones back home, she says. Back home on Cardassia.
Yep.
And then Garak's like, yes, I know what saunas you're talking about. And then he accepts her invitation, but he seems very uneasy.
He does. And
it's like Garak's famous poker face is just gone this whole episode.
Well, nobody else was around after she left. It's okay. You can look uneasy.
He can let himself go. There's no hidden cameras or anything.
apparently in Garak's tailor shop in the scene, you can see the clothes that like the Elorian guy from Rivals wore.
Oh man, it took me a minute to even remember what episode that was. Like
the one with the Rivals,
right? Yeah, he was an Elorian guy, and he wanted to set up a gambling parlor with magical gambling machines or something.
Yep.
Yeah, we pay attention to this show.
Hey, I know.
Okay.
I was there. Rivals is one of those where when you say the title, I remember it. Even though it seems generic enough that it could be a lot of episodes, I'm like, oh, I remember which one that one is.
I mean, when you said it in conjunction with the Elorian guy, I remembered it. So then we have a scene where Jake shows Ben his new favorite alien biscotti. But the captain is distracted. And then Jake is like, got some blue balls with Cassidy out, eh?
Yeah, it's weird.
In a perfectly normal thing for a teenage boy to say to his dad. And then Ben is just like, I just want to say, no matter what happens, you and me. And Jake is just like, what? Then the senior staff get together to analyze the Cassidy situation. So the good news is that she only seems to be smuggling food and medical supplies. Dax tries to hang back after the meeting to talk to Sisko, but he just dismisses her. Like, literally. He says, dismissed. And she goes away.
Yep.
So we don't get...
Good being the captain.
We don't get to hear Dax's take on this situation right now. Then Cassidy returns for some more smooch time with Ben, and does not mention any meeting with the Maquis. Those Tholians sure love those supplies, she says, and I gotta go meet them again soon. And Sisko's like, uh-huh. And then Jake walks in and introduces us to a new genre of holosuite program. Hypothetical baseball games.
I mean, you know they would do it.
Right.
Like, that's like, it's like fantasy football.
Right.
But to the next level.
Yeah, knowing, like, especially like diehard baseball fans and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what if the 61 Yankees played the 78 Red Sox? I will put this into my simulation. Sisko's like, immediately like, the Yankees are going to win that. What is this? And he turns out to be right.
He does turn out to be right. So,
yeah.
He knows what he's talking about.
Sisko's like, there's no suspense in this for me. Like,
I mean, the thing is, if you were on the Enterprise, it would just be like, hey, computer, make me a game between, the whatever and the whatever.
Sure.
But here you have to go out and get it programmed specially and then, pay Quark for the time in this holosuite or whatever. So it's not as good a life with these holosuites, is my point.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have access to the big, powerful Enterprise computer literally capable of creating life if you ask it to. So, you gotta take what you could get. Anyway, Sisko can't join the baseball game because he's got to run and go scheme with Odo and Eddington before Cassidy leaves on her next trip. So they plan to do the old cloak and follow again on Cassidy's next run, and then just arrest everybody when the meeting happens. But then Eddington's like, actually, you guys go on without me. I'll stay and oversee the replicator shipment. I don't really trust that Reese guy to handle it.
I do like his excuse. It's like, look, I don't want to be responsible if your girlfriend gets hurt. So, can you take that part of the deal?
Yeah, and then, have we mentioned Reese before or seen him? He has a weird number of lines in this episode. Sisko runs down to Cassidy as she's about to leave, and he pitches an impromptu trip to Ryza. And Cassidy is like, well, I have to go on this run, but we can do it after. And Sisko's like, forget it. And it's hard to tell if Cassidy detects Sisko's suspicion. I mean, if she does, she probably shouldn't go on this run, but...
Right? I mean, I feel like there's something there where she's just like, something's up with this.
Yeah, she says it in this really weird way. She's like, I'm tempted, but I can't. I wish it could be different. And he's like, I wish it could be different too.
Apparently we have not seen Reese before.
Okay. I thought maybe Reese is just one of those names that's so common. For some reason I thought thought someone had mentioned Reese before or something like that, but
I feel like there is a Reese in like First Contact.
Maybe that's it. Also, where's Jones? Like,
Yeah.
I think
Where's Jones?
this is a job for Jones. Maybe he's on vacation or something. Or maybe Reese is like the young go-getter who has knocked Jones off his perch or something like that.
That's what happened. Yeah.
It's like there could be this whole like, office politics going on behind the scenes.
It could happen. Apparently, Reese... There's a Starfleet officer named Reese who appears in the episode The Siege of AR-558. Played by Patrick Kilpatrick.
Oh. So I'm just imagining things. Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
So anyway, they follow the Defiant again, but this time no Maquis ship shows up. So it just hangs out, circling around in the Badlands.
Yeah, the Zosa sits out there for a really long time.
Yeah, which I'd be like, okay, something's up. Let's leave now. But
we're doing something super illegal. We should probably not hang around.
Yeah. So Garak is helping Quark with a suit, exhibiting less than stellar customer service skills. And also he apparently made Quark's pants a full meter too long.
That was the moment where I'm like, what? Like, worst tailor in history if you can make it a meter too long and not notice.
I mean, apparently, like, everything, it's just the lapels are off, the cuffs are off. I mean, I think just Zial is in his head is what the problem is. But Kira comes in and threatens him against doing anything to hurt Zial. He's like, okay. And then Quark is like, you told her.
I also like, it's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, the officials who run the station are just allowed to come in and assault you in your place of business without any consequence.
Yeah. But yeah, Quark and Garak engage in a little bit of game theory speculation about whether Kira actually did that to try to trick Garak into going on the date. But I have to say also, maybe she just, if there was an assassination plot, she could just be totally unaware of it.
That is true.
So
I really love the scene though, because Garak's like, I wasn't going to go, but now that she doesn't want me to go, I know that it's safe to go. and it's so convoluted. And then when Quark jumps, it's like, well, unless that's what they want you to think.
Right. Yeah.
And Garak's like, oh my God, you're right.
Oh my gosh, someone can think 2 steps ahead.
They're playing 3D chess over here, and Garak is stuck playing checkers.
Just again, Garak continuing to be very un-Garak through this whole thing. But back on the Defiant, it's been 5 hours and still no Maquis. Then Odo has a light bulb moment. Maybe this is all a big distraction op to get Sisko off the station. Because only Sisko could defend the station from an attack.
Yep.
So they decloak and just beam aboard Cassidy's ship to ask what's going on. He's like, yeah, let's just cut right to the chase with this. But she doesn't know anything about an attack on the station. She just thought she was supposed to meet somebody here.
He's just like, you may not really love me, but I cannot believe that you would be intentionally setting up Jake to possibly die. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? I was just meeting terrorists to give them, like, medical supplies and stuff. Right.
So yeah, Sisko paces around wondering what could possibly be happening back on the station. And then after a not impressive length of time, he's like, oh yeah, the replicators. This Class 7 operation to deliver replicators to the Cardassians.
Yeah.
That I just put totally in the hands of Michael Eddington.
Well, Michael Eddington, the guy who's always been here.
Right.
Consistently and reliably every episode.
He's super good friends with all of them. He's said that, so it must be true.
Yeah.
Also, was Odo on the Defiant during this scene?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, why didn't Odo, like, go undercover on Cassidy's ship? Like, that would have been a good
Odo
use of
need
Odo.
to come at all, honestly.
Because, yeah, I think that would have been really helpful for their plan to surprise and arrest the Maquis. But
they should have just arrested them the first time. Like, I don't know of any reason to let the Maquis get away with these supplies the first time.
Yeah.
Except that Sisko wasn't there to sign off.
Yeah, it's, with these kinds of games, you never know when it's time to reveal your hand. But it did seem like that was the right thing to do. But, maybe now that we've confirmed it, maybe we want to, like, sit on Cassidy and, follow her back to her cell leader or whatever.
True.
Back on Deep Space Nine, Eddington briefs his people. He's like, okay, we're going to load the replicators on this ship, but don't tell anybody, especially those Bajorans. And don't call anybody off the station either. And they're like, okay. And then they all leave, and then Kira comes in and is like, did you want to see me? And Eddington's like, yes, I wanted to see you. Stunned! And as Kira hits the ground from his phaser bolt, she thinks, I can't believe I fell for that again. Because that's the exact same thing that happened with Thomas Riker.
You can't trust Starfleet people.
Yeah. It's like he almost went out of his way to shoot her. Like,
well, because he needed to, if he was going to have a blackout of communications and he needed to be in charge, and you can't have Kira around being like, wait a second, that wasn't the orders.
Yeah. I guess she's the most dangerous person to contend with at this point. I guess, Reese is willing to follow orders without any hesitation, but Kira would be like, what's going on here?
Well, she's second in command, so she would be in charge, technically, if he's take her out. That way, he can leave Reese in charge of the station for some reason.
Right, yeah. So, anyway, the Defiant rushes back to the station, leaving Cassidy and her ship to escape. Eddington takes charge of the replicators and puts Reese in charge of the station while he's gone, and then they have an unusually long conversation about this plot point that has no consequences and is immediately meaningless 1 second later when we cut ahead to Sisko back in charge and the crew having figured out Eddington's treachery all off screen.
Well, speaking of unnecessarily long discussions, there is a note about this scene.
Okay.
Where it says, Eddington stunned Kira, usurped command of the station, but before escaping with the CFI replicators, he didn't tell his subordinate, Lieutenant Reese, why the younger man was being left in command instead of superior officers Kira and Dax. But Reese believed Eddington was in command and had the authority to name his successor, even a junior officer. There was precedent in Starfleet regulations for acting commanding officer to give the call-on to a junior officer. In the original series episode, The Menagerie Part 1, Lieutenant Commander Spock bypassed Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott, who was not on the bridge, and left command of the Enterprise to Lieutenant Hansen, the helmsman, before Captain Kirk returned.
Oh, geez, these Memory Alpha nerds.
Coincidentally, in each case, both Eddington and Spock were unlawful acting commanding officers. So, yeah, there you go.
Except in this case, it literally has no consequence. Like, he immediately gets on the ship and leaves. So, yeah. And then we skip the whole part where the Defiant comes back and they're like, oh, Reese, why are you in charge? He's like, well, Eddington put me in charge, and he flew away with the replicators, like planned, right?
I don't even know. Like, does Captain Sisko care who's in charge once he shows up and he is in charge now?
That's a good point.
He might want to know what happened. But who was in command while he was away, I don't think is the top of his list of concerns.
I mean, I wonder if there was a deleted scene or something where they met with Reese and then they deduced the whole Michael Eddington treachery. But,
like, Sisko shows up and Reese is like, nah, I'm in charge now.
Yeah. That would be great. It's like they have to wrest control of the station back away from Reese, who's now gone power hungry.
Yep.
But anyway, in true villain fashion, Eddington calls Sisko to gloat. This time the video call effect seems to be accomplished with some kind of TV screen or projection, because it looks kind of weird. It looks kind of like low resolution.
Yeah.
But they are able to move the camera around while they're having this conversation, which I guess the dramatic trade-off is worth it. I don't know. But Sisko's like, why? And Eddington's like, that's a subject for another time. And then 15 seconds later launches into a rambling speech about his political philosophy or something, of how insidious the Federation is for wanting to win people over to their ideals and not liking people who commit terrorism.
At least the Borg lets you know up front.
Yeah.
It's very dramatic.
Exactly like the Borg. Sisko is visibly annoyed with this speech and says, never mind, I don't care why anymore. Just know that I'm going to hunt you down. And then he does a power hang-up that falls slightly short of the I'm talking to an empty telephone scene in Heat, which distracted me and made me start daydreaming about what a Michael Mann-directed Deep Space Nine episode might look like.
I do like when he's just like, yeah, I don't actually care. You suck,
Yeah.
and your logic is dumb, so whatever.
She's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Just, I'm gonna get you. Bye. And he hangs up.
So the note on this is Eddington's final speech demonstrates Deep Space Nine's move away from the idyllic Federation from the original series in The Next Generation. The speech builds upon Sisko's line, "It's easy to be a saint in paradise," from the Maquis Part 2.
Sure.
Quark's speech from the Jem'Hadar.
Uh-huh.
The Hell on Earth of Past Tense Part 1 and 2. And the Paradise Never Seems So Well Armed line from Paradise Lost.
Uh-huh.
Of special importance is Eddington's speech. In Eddington's speech is the line, "Nobody leaves paradise," implying no one should have any reason to leave it, no one should want to leave it, precisely because it is paradise. And if someone does not want to leave it, then obviously there's a problem somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This recalls Ira Stephen Bear's use of the quotation from Harold Pinter and the notation that what may appear to be paradise actually has weasels under the coffee table. Eddington's speech, however, especially his comparison with the Borg, is perhaps the harshest indictment of the Federation we have seen yet.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, just harshest in, like, he has a really strong opinion about it, but
yeah.
I feel like some of previous, like, the No Saints in Paradise speech was maybe a little bit more eloquent. But anyway, yeah, so, in the Cardassian laying on a hot rock like a lizard sauna, Garak walks in and finds Ziyal laying on a hot rock like a lizard. He's like, "Okay, seriously, what's going on here?" And she's like, "Well, I thought about killing you, but then I thought it would just be nice to have another Cardassian to hang out with and talk to about Cardassian stuff. Now, you want to get on this hot rock or not?" And Garak is like, "Screw it," and tosses his gun away and lays down on the hot rock. So,
all's well that ends well, or something. I don't know.
Then Cassidy returns to Deep Space Nine alone after dropping her crew off with the Maquis. She declares that she loves Ben and doesn't want to throw that away, although being in jail might hinder that.
I do like that her whole crew is just like, yeah, we'll be terrorists now, whatever.
So Sisko calls in Lieutenant Reese to arrest her, and she says she'll be back, and Sisko's like, "Well, I'll be here." The end.
I do like Ronald D. Moore comments, "We will be seeing Cassidy Yates again, but we wanted to introduce some conflict into a relationship that had been very soft until now. It broadened her character a little bit and brought the Maquis back into the show. I thought it was an interesting place to put the captain in, that it put his responsibilities as captain and his personal life directly at odds. He really had to struggle with it from the teaser until the end, and that's a great place to put a character and watch them squirm."
Sure.
The scene where he goes down to the bay and tries to talk her into just going to Risa is a great moment for the character. He was trying desperately to find a way to save everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good scene, I guess. Yeah, just like, hey, let's just run away.
As Ziyal mentions in that section, her grandfather, Ducat's father, who was previously mentioned in the episode Civil Defense, where it is implied that he and Garak knew one another, but still no more information about Ducat's dad.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, in Civil Defense, I think there was some hints that Garak was responsible for his downfall, at least.
Yeah. Dialogue places this episode 18 months after The Search Part 1 and 5 months after Indiscretion.
Okay.
So, that
could help. Yeah, if you need to build a timeline, that's. Although, wait, was Indiscretion when Cassidy moved in? Or moved onto the station?
Isn't Indiscretion the one where Ducat and Kira go and find Ziyal?
Oh yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that obviously. I was just thinking there was the scene where they said she'd been living on the station a little less than 6 months.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, you're right.
I assumed that it was dialogue relating to Ziyal and how long it had been or whatever. But you may be right that points to Cassidy more.
No, I think it makes more sense. No, because, there definitely was no Captain Sisko stuff in Indiscretion. Because I remember remarking that there's almost no Federation or even human characters in that episode.
There's a couple more notes about the story here. So, Mark Garrett O'Connell's original inspiration for the episode. Can you take a guess? What is his inspiration for this episode?
An old movie he saw on TV.
No, that's I mean, if it was Ira Stephen Bear, you'd probably be right on the money. Got to admit, no, the inspiration for the story was the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Specifically, he was surprised by the reaction of the American people. He's saying, for the first few days after the event, everyone was so sure it was foreign terrorists. Anyone who appeared Middle Eastern suddenly was under suspicion for no reason at all. Though as it transpired, the bombing was carried out not by a Middle Eastern terrorist, but by Timothy McVeigh, a white American. This led Garrett O'Connell to speculate what might happen if a terrorist attack took place on Deep Space Nine. In a situation like that, who would they immediately suspect? What if it turned out to be the last person in the world to come to mind? I just wanted to play with that idea.
Okay.
And it ended up being a story where Cassidy Yates turns into the number one suspect.
Except she's the number one suspect from the very beginning of the episode, so...
Well, yeah, that's because Ronald D. Moore comes in and makes a lot... Like, Garrett O'Connell comes up with the story. Ronald D. Moore came in. But,
okay.
So, in the end, only a few remnants of the original idea appear in the final episode. But the notion that the perpetrator of the crime is the last person you suspect is still to be seen with the Eddington defection plot.
Sure. Although, he's being pretty fishy through the whole episode, but I don't know.
I feel like it's hard for me to judge at this point, knowing what I know of Eddington.
Yeah. I just think he has shifty eyes or something. Also, like, he looks kind of like Benedict Cumberbatch in this episode.
I mean, I don't feel like more than he usually does.
I don't know. I was just noticing it this episode. I don't know. I was like, oh man, they should bring in Benedict Cumberbatch as his brother.
That's what you need. Michael Eddington's brother.
It's me, Steve Eddington. I have a British accent for some reason.
How old was Benedict Cumberbatch at this point?
Yeah, he probably was.
He was born in 1976, so he would have been like 19 or 20 at this point.
So he
could have been Eddington's younger brother.
Brother, sure, why not?
When did he start acting? Hold on, we're going to IMDb. Another trip to IMDb to find out what his first credit is as an actor. It is 2002, a TV movie called Fields of Gold. So he was not acting yet at this point. It doesn't sound, unless I guess he could have been doing theater or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he probably still had to go to like acting school and stuff. I don't know.
Right.
You know how those British people are.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking up Cumberbatch stuff, and he started acting in theater in 2001. It sounds like.
Okay.
Before that, he did train as an actor. At the Victoria University of Manchester, he studied drama and then continued training at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, LAMDA, graduating with an MA in classic acting.
Okay.
In January 2018, Cumberbatch succeeded Timothy West as president of LAMDA.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. He attended Harrow, where he was warned against an acting career as it was a tough business. After leaving Harrow, he took a gap year to volunteer as an English teacher at a Tibetan monastery in Darjeeling, India. Well, that's cool.
Oh, wow.
Anyway. So, yeah.
All right.
Random Benedict Cumberbatch stuff. The only other note I have about this episode is it says when Ronald D. Moore began to compose his script for the story, there were 3 separate but connected Maquis stories, not 2. As there are in the finished episode, not counting the Garak Sial plot. So, the A story was the Yates-Sisko situation, the B story was Eddington's defection, and the C story was the discovery that the Klingons had begun to arm the Maquis.
Ooh. Yeah.
The Klingon element clearly was later removed.
It would make sense, I guess. It's a logical thing for the Klingons to do.
Yeah, they don't like the Cardassians, so...
They're trying to beat those Cardassians. Yeah, so I was wondering, I'm just trying to decipher. I mean, I guess Eddington doesn't like the Cardassians also. But he makes this whole thing, it's like, but you want to bring the Cardassians into the Federation, which, who even said that?
I mean, they probably do.
Right. I mean, that would solve the Maquis situation, wouldn't it? If the Cardassians joined the Federation?
Yep.
Like, there would literally be nothing to fight for anymore. Like, everything would be happy and hunky-dory. So he wants to stop that from happening?
Well, because the Federation is insidious.
Right. They want people to join the Federation. How dare they?
Yeah. They want everybody in there so they can convert them to their evil way of life. of no money, and really, I don't know. I get the impression, and maybe it's just me, that Eddington isn't so much in it for the political philosophy as maybe he's like, here's a place where I can be big and important.
Right.
Is the Maquis.
Sort of like Thomas Riker's motivation.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's why I like that moment when he, like, you know, he pretends that, you know, he's just a good Starfleet officer and he follows orders, you know, it doesn't think about, like, right or wrong or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's like a cool little window into maybe like his disillusionment with Starfleet or whatever. Then he gives this big speech at the end, and I can't quite wrap my mind around what his philosophy is after that. So,
well, it's so bizarre, because if this is legitimately his philosophy, then how do you end up in Starfleet in the first place?
Well, you know, you start off young and idealistic and naive, and then you gradually develop new views or whatever, I guess, based on your experience. I don't know.
How old is this guy anyway? He's Kenneth Marshall is his name. Born 1950, so he'd be mid-40s at this point. And he's a lieutenant commander? That's not bad. Not great, but not bad. I mean, for a security guy, it's probably hard to break into like those higher ranks.
In the Star Trek universe, where people stay at the exact same rank for like ever. Yeah.
Except for the people who get promoted ridiculously fast. Like, I think Dax, if Dax is now a lieutenant commander, wasn't she like a lieutenant JG when she came aboard?
No, we had this discussion. Like, Bashir was a junior grade, and Dax was a full lieutenant.
Oh, okay. So she's been promoted once. That's fine.
And they've each been promoted once. So now he's a full lieutenant, and she's a lieutenant commander, I think. I know we've talked about this before and looked it up.
Okay.
And like even went back to like the pilot and looked at what their ranks were, but now I've forgotten again. So,
well, I know according to what we read today that she's a lieutenant commander. So.
Right. When you have the like half pip, is that supposed to go like which side is that supposed to go
on? So it goes away from the center.
Okay.
I mean, I could say left or right, but then it's like our left or their left, but it's away from the center of your body. I've been having to pay attention because I bought like some stuff to do a Star Trek costume for Halloween.
Ooh.
And like I'm gonna do a Lower Decks costume, and I'm like, okay, I gotta put it on like it appears on the show with these pips, but you know, you're looking in the mirror, so it's not how it looks on the TV, and so it threw me all off, and I was like, wait, is it supposed to be the no?
Right, yeah, tricky mirrors. So, title rating.
What are our 3 criteria that we're doing now?
They are memorableness. Where's my other? Cleverness and relevance.
Okay, going backwards, I guess relevance. For the Cause seems relevant to what's going on here because it can apply on multiple levels with like what Cassidy's doing and what Eddington is doing. So I think it fits well there.
Although it's not made super clear whether Cassidy is doing it for the cause or just for money, but
yeah, you're right. I have no idea why she's doing it necessarily. I assumed that we weren't going for like Cassidy just wants more money. She wants to be rich, but who knows?
Yeah.
The other 2, I don't know. Memorableness. I mean, for the Cause, it doesn't immediately bring this to mind.
Yeah.
There's so many episodes that could fit that once again, where any of the Maquis episodes really.
Like when you hear the phrase for the cause, that makes me think of like, you know, making a big sacrifice for the cause. A big
sacrifice. Yeah.
Or something like
so
that.
I was about to say, it could even be referring to the Federation if it's some Starfleet officer makes a big sacrifice for the ideals of the Federation or whatever, right? So it could mean a lot of things, and so I don't think that it fits that well on, or is that memorable on this episode.
I mean, I will say, like, I watched the episode yesterday, and like, I went and I did something for like 1 hour, and then I came back to start writing up my notes, and I already had forgotten what the title of the episode was. Like, I had to go back to Paramount Plus to remind myself. So that's not good in its favor.
Yeah.
And then yeah, not super clever. So I'm going to say, for me, I think it's a little bit below average as a title.
Yeah, no, I would probably agree on the whole.
So what do you think about the episode For the Cause?
I like the turn with Eddington just because it gave us something about him to give a crap about. And I like the build-up that we did have to it, that there was at least a little bit foreshadowed. I feel like they could have done a better job of that.
Yeah.
You could have even, if you really wanted to play on the whole, is he a shapeshifter thing, you could have even, you don't want to repeat having him be the red herring from that earlier episode, but you could have still made him suspicious. You could have an episode where you're suspicious of him as a changeling, and then he proves that he's not, and then it turns out that, and he's got a good explanation for all the stuff he did that made you suspicious, and oh yeah, everything's fine. And then it turns out that all that stuff was suspicious. Yeah. It was just for another reason, and you didn't anticipate it. I feel like that would have been a good twist. The way that they did it is fine, where it's like, because I wasn't expecting it really, where he's doing his security job, and you have this big distraction of, oh, this person Sisko really cares about is working with the Maquis, which is like, they recruit her specifically for this turn eventually, knowing that like they'd be able to use that and get Eddington something at some point. I don't know, but
maybe
that story point I'm fine with. I think it's pretty decent. The Garak Zial story is kind of like, okay. I don't know that it doesn't feel like it started anywhere or that it goes anywhere. It was just a thing that kind of sort of happened and doesn't even get resolved particularly well. I don't think it's still kind of open-ended at the end.
Right.
They decide, at least for today, they're going to hang out on some rocks.
Right. It's like, does she want to kill me? No, I guess not. Okay.
There's some good bits overall. I think, well, and I like the giving Sisko this conflict with Cassidy.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like you have to, as Ronald D. Moore was saying, he's like, yeah, their relationships had it too easy. We had to throw some wrenches in there. I don't feel like that's necessary exactly, but if you're going to do one, I think that they chose a good one. And it's one that feels like it has consequence to it, because Cassidy goes to jail at the end. And I don't think that you expect that to happen to the captain's girlfriend. Or that he's just like, I'll be waiting for you when you get out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is our paragon of virtue. Who's like, I know you were giving aid to terrorists, but I'll still be here when you get out. It's good. So there's good pieces, but overall it just feels like a meh episode to me. Like, I'm not that invested in it. So it's going to be above the line. There's good stuff. I don't feel like I can push it too far above the line, because it's just like, despite the stuff that happens, it's one of those episodes that just slips out of my mind after it's done. Like,
sure,
it had some good stuff, but bleh. So yeah, it's gonna be a Lieutenant Commander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's one of the points, is that I don't think Eddington was properly built up for this twist. I feel like with Cassidy, it's a little different, because I think we know Cassidy a little bit better as a character. Even though I think we've actually seen her fewer times than Eddington at this point. I could be wrong about that. But even like when we find out she's working for the Maquis, even though they don't explain what she's really getting out of it, we know her well enough. We can kind of like, build in our head what she's probably like all about.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and the episode seems pretty comfortable leaving her motivations as subtext, and like, I don't mind that they don't bring that up almost.
No, yeah, I think I hardly noticed until you mentioned it, and then I was like, yeah, I guess we don't really get told, huh?
I mean, I imagine something along the lines of like, she sympathizes, and she's delivering food and medical supplies, so maybe she like thinks of it as a humanitarian mission, and if she gets paid, all the better, or whatever, or something like that. So I think, yeah, the Cassidy and Ben stuff is definitely the best stuff in the episode. And if it was just that, it would be Commander, I think, hands down for me. But yeah, the Garak being totally thrown off his game by his infatuation with a much younger woman, is a little weird. And then also the twist and setup of Eddington as a villain falls a little flat. And I really think they could have maybe just, like, maybe they didn't need that speech at the end. They could have left a little bit more of that as subtext and left it maybe a little bit more mysterious for now.
Yeah, taking the same route they did with Cassidy to be like, let's give him some mystery around it.
Yeah, and then you'd be like, oh my gosh, why did he do it? And then, you know, if maybe we could have had Sisko say why and just have him actually stick to his, like, you know, that's not for right now or whatever. Instead of immediately, like, blurting out all his, like, the Federation is worse than the Borg stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that stuff is a little falls flat. So, just, you know, my only question is, does the Ben and Cassidy stuff hold it together enough for me to still give it a full commander? Because I really do like this. They tried it with Picard and Vosh a little bit, where, you know, he was interested in this woman who just, you know, was a criminal.
Yeah.
That was always a little annoying. I think it's done way better here, where we've actually built up why Ben likes Cassidy and all that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, and she's not a criminal, but like when they get together, so he gets a chance to like grow to care for her without you. Because if you tried to put Picard in like a real relationship with Vash after knowing like the shady stuff that she does, it feels wrong. Yeah, like you can't see Picard in that situation. Maybe you could see Sisko in that situation. I don't know, because he's never been, you know, quite as like squeaky clean as Picard. But maybe you could see Picard like falling in love with someone, and then a year later they become a criminal, and he's like, "Oh, well, now I have a conflict," which is what's happening. Yeah, I agree that.
So yeah, it works a little bit better here, where like you kind of feel the betrayal, but also like, just Sisko's decision or seeming decision to like not give up on the relationship still. Mm-hmm. You know, it all kind of makes sense, and it's all I think it's all good stuff. So all that said, I think I still will give it a full commander. Like,
okay,
it won't be like, it wouldn't be on like the high up on my commanders, but sure. I think there's enough solid stuff in there to give it that. Like you said, I just don't really know what to make of the Garak and Ziyal story. Like,
well, and it wasn't until you brought up like it's like Garak's obsession with a much younger woman, where I'm just like, you know what it really is, or what it really feels like, is that this is the moment where they're like, people are thinking that like Garak is gay for Bashir or something, and we can't have that, so we need to throw something in there.
Yeah, they had to give Garak the not gays. I think at some point Ira Stephen Bear straight up said like they had to give Garak the not gays. So
yeah, and so maybe that's why it feels so like disingenuous, the whole thing,
right?
I don't know.
Yeah. And then I don't know, but even in the episode they're playing it as like, is Bashir jealous or what's going? He's like, why are you looking at that woman all the time?
Bashir has really weird relationships with like the two main male characters that he is close to.
Yeah.
Actually, Bashir has weird relationships with everyone he's close to, because he's got this weird bromance with O'Brien, and this weird like he's kind of into Garak, but because Garak's like the bad boy relationship going on with Garak, it reminds me of Gilmore Girls and like Dean and the guy that Peter Petrelli played. I forget his name. Anyway, and then he like the main other character he's probably close to at all is Dax, and he's always had the creepy hots for Dax. So I don't know if that Bashir has any like not strange relationships.
Yeah, Bashir, he's just I don't know what to say about the guy. He's he's Bashir.
Yep. Can't nobody like him.
But yeah. Oh, and another note I had in here is that what we got, like Eddington's turn, feels a little bit repetitive after what we saw with Cal Hudson and Thomas Riker, and you know, possibly other characters as well.
Yeah.
I guess just there's a lot of disillusionment with Starfleet out there, and a lot of a lot of people, a lot of officers who are fed up with the perceived hypocrisy of the Federation or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what ostensibly it is.
Right.
I mean, with both Riker and Eddington, I'm just like, I don't think that's the real reason.
Yeah.
But Cal Hudson, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, Cal Hudson, I buy, because he was like living among these people, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, I
Right.
on some level, I feel like some of the people defecting to the Maquis are just like, I want an excuse to be violent, and the Federation Starfleet doesn't give me that as much as I want. Like, you know that like Chakotay and I think and B'Elanna Torres both used to be, at least in the Academy. Chakotay, I think, got up to commander in Starfleet before he defected to the Maquis. So both of them, I'm like, you just wanted to fight. Especially B'Elanna. Like, she feels
Right.
like I want to fight somebody, and Starfleet doesn't let me do that. So but yeah, I feel like the only way that they have for us to keep feeling like the Maquis are a threat, because you can't have them like attack the station. They're not that kind of threat.
Right.
You have to make them like, they can be a threat to the Cardassians. They don't have any reason to go after the Federation most of the time. So for our main characters to feel threatened by them, this is the only way to do it, is to continually have people from our Federation going over to them.
Sure.
And so that's how you maintain this threat, is that's why we keep seeing it over and over, because that's the main way that they can get. Because if they attack the Cardassians some more, even if like the Defiant's like, oh no, we have to go out and save these Cardassians who are getting attacked, like, we don't really care.
Right.
Like, honestly, the Cardassians deserve it as far as I am concerned as an audience member. They're all jerks, regardless of what, you know, we want to have peaceful relations with them, but they're assholes.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? What's up? Why didn't the civilian government, like, why doesn't the civilian government just give like these DMZ colonies what they want or whatever? Like, you think this would be a good time to like be like, okay, can we renegotiate that whole DMZ situation?
yeah, it's like, we don't need this crap on top of the Klingons. Maybe they can't afford to look weak as the new government. Like, if the people perceive them as weak and losing territory, they might be like, oh, maybe the military being in charge was the better way to go.
Or maybe they need those systems for strategic reasons or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, could be.
yeah, it seems like having them continue to wage this war with the Maquis, it's like, whoa, you know, one war at a time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's on the next episode of
Okay, so the next episode,
Star
right.
Trek Deep Space Nine?
There's a lot of like Terminator 2 in there, but it's like Terminator 2 meets Stargate.
Ooh.
Which is a lot of sci-fi to throw at you, but this is a sci-fi show, so it's fine.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so time-traveling robots and Stargates. Got it.
Yep.
But specifically Terminator 2. Okay.
Yes, it's not at all Terminator, the original movie. It is definitely Terminator 2.
Okay. So look forward to that. But I think we'll wrap it up for now, unless you got any final thoughts.
Nah.
All right, so if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out the description. Maybe something interesting in there. Maybe I just mentioned my favorite scenes from my favorite movies, so I have an excuse to put them down there. I don't know. But I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Peace.
Until we meet again, keep the blood wine warm and the prune juice chilled.